Welcome, everyone, to the HireMyVA Team and Business Building Podcast, where we help you to reclaim your freedom through hiring and thriving with virtual assistants without breaking the bank, without breaking your bank. And I'm Dave Braun. I'm here with my partner, my best buddy, Larry Broughton. Larry,
Hello.
How are you this evening?
Things are going swimmingly here this evening. Thank you. It's good to see you, David.
Yeah.
How are you?
Yeah. I'm doing fantastic. Just
Good.
after this one, Cheryl and I are going to have a great, enjoyable Sunday evening. Really exciting. Cooking omelets and just hanging out together.
Cooking omelets. Awesome.
Oh yeah, we do good ones. well, speaking of cooking, let's do a little bit of cooking on this podcast here. You ready?
All right, good. Cooking with gas. Let's hear it.
All right. So we've got a question about how much do we share our fears and stuff, but I think there's a recent flashpoint that came out this week in our email. That's something that one of your great books that you put together to give people like a quick tip, inspiration in multiple areas, but it's a great book. And this flashpoint talks about fear a little bit. And really it's related to this question is of how much of my fears and or issues do I share with my team as the leader? In other words, how vulnerable should I be with my team? And Larry, is it all right if I just read that flashpoint real quick? It won't take long.
That's probably the best way to start this. It starts with a quote, folks. So let's start there.
Yeah, here's the quote from Robert L. Stevenson. He says,
Robert Louis Stevenson. It says L, but yes.
Oh, okay.
That Robert L. Stevenson.
Oh, yeah, he's before my time, I guess.
Go ahead.
All right. Well, Robert Stevenson says, keep your fears to yourself, but share your inspiration with others. And
I object.
That's right. We object. So here's what the flashpoint says. It says, quoting someone and then disagreeing with them is not something done often, but there are times when it's needed. Part of being a great leader is leading by example, forging through obstacles by determined actions, thoughts, and willpower. And when we admit our fears and continue succeeding in spite of them, that exemplifies great leadership. Because then we're teaching others to do the same and sending the message that no matter what our fears are, we won't let them control us. Instead, we will use them for the greater good. So while it's good to share our inspiration, true inspiration comes from sharing our fears and our courage to succeed through them. Now, here it is again. So while it's good to share our inspiration, true inspiration comes from sharing our fears and our courage to succeed through them. Now, we end the flashpoint with a question. What fears on your journey are you going to share that will inspire others? And so this is related to the question is, how much do we really share with our team about the fears on our journey?
Well, Dave, let me jump in here if you don't mind.
Yeah.
I think, first of all, this is kind of a paradigm shift from old school management to when there was definitely a hierarchy in organizations. And there are some people who have always led from the point, like, don't let any of your subordinates see any of your weaknesses. You know, you've always got to be strong. You're always putting on a strong face. Yeah, there's some truth to that. But the leadership that I've seen that's been most effective in my life, both in the military and in the business community, is when we are relatable to the people that we are leading, that are in our charge, right? Now, granted, just because you're afraid or you're fearful doesn't mean that you, as a good leader, become paralyzed. There's a big difference, right? But oftentimes we are most inspired by people who say, yeah, I've been in the same boat that you're in right now. I've been afraid, or I've gone through a divorce, or I've had a bankruptcy, or my business has failed. But here's what I did to move through that. You know, I think it's pretty old school, like, keep your fears to yourself. Now, he may not have been absolutely literal about that, right? However, I do know people who's like, never show your weaknesses, right? It's like, that's a hard way to live.
Never let them see you sweat, right? That's another
Never let
quote
them
I've
see
heard.
the whole national marketing campaign
Yeah, or is
around
was
that,
that for
right?
deodorant or
It
something?
was deodorant, yes, or antiperspirant, right?
Yeah.
So it's a little bit of a paradigm shift. I the most effective transformational leaders that I have seen though in life who really inspire their team members to fight through the difficult times are those that are willing to show a little bit of vulnerability. So the question then is, how vulnerable do you get?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That's really the question in today's age. Like, we're recording this in 2021, right? I do believe that team members, employees, whatever term you use in your organization, this is going to shock you. Are you ready? They know you're human.
Mm. Really?
Shocking, right?
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
I still hear this though. People say, "Oh, it's like you're what you've done is so unattainable. Or I can't relate to you. We're so different." No, we're all the same. We really are. Shocking
Yeah.
as it might be. Um, but how vulnerable do you get? We can give some examples, but I would just say this to start the conversation off, Dave. Um, there will be some people in your business environment that's close to you that you're going to be more vulnerable, more transparent with than the people that are further out in the
Mm-hmm.
organization. So that doesn't mean, if your marriage is just now crashing down and you found out that your significant other, your spouse, is cheating on you, you don't go to a company state of the company address and express your vulnerability there. That's not
Yeah.
appropriate.
Yeah.
But if you have a business partner and it's going to impact your performance and you go in behind closed doors, yeah, maybe that's something that you share
Yeah.
there, right?
Mm-hmm.
You don't go to a business development meeting with a potential new client and break down crying because your spouse just cheated on you. That's probably not appropriate,
Right.
right?
Right.
Right. So that's my preamble, long
Yeah.
preamble. What are your
Yeah.
thoughts on this?
I think you're right. You're breaking it down into depending upon the circle of people that you're talking to, right?
Yes.
Within your company, it might be your board of advisors, or it could be your business partner. It could even be
Yes.
your most trusted, admin, or a couple of folks that have been on your team through, thick and thin, that have stayed with you for years, right?
Yes.
And so the more vulnerable you are with them will not necessarily show weakness, it'll show strength. And chances are they will understand and want to help you go through this stuff, whatever it is, and will maybe give you some suggestions on how to do it. And you never know, they may say, "Oh, well, my friend over at this other company just went through that and here's what they did." So
Yeah.
they could give you some ideas and stuff, right?
Yeah.
But like you said, is if if there's some folks in your team that you're not that close to, yeah, you want to be very careful, because you don't want them to lose confidence in the company or you, right? And so
Yeah.
I think in those cases, you can go ahead and share certain things, but I think you've got to have some kind of a plan in your mind going forward. It's like, hey guys, it sucks right now for whatever reason, but here's all the steps that we're going to be taking to get us out of that, right?
Yeah. Well, a lot of it has to do with context. I think that's where we're going
Yeah.
on this, right? And since this is Hire My VA, yes, we want you to capture more freedom in your life. Really, this is based on building a team and business, though,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so, one of the things besides the like tragedy that might happen in someone's personal life that they bring to work, sometimes there's like mistakes, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes the best thing that we can do to train our team members to build loyalty to us, to have more empathy for the consumer, is for us or our client, is to say, "Hey, I've been there too. I've made mistakes too. And here's the mistake that I made. How are we going to learn from that?" Right?
Yeah.
It's the whole being relatable and the personal experience of overcoming it. Dave, you were in the corporate arena for a while, and you're running your great website design business. Might have an example or two, or that you want to share with us from either of those experiences?
Yeah, there's one particular experience.
Uh-huh.
We've had a client with an e-commerce site, for example, and we
Uh-huh.
have a particular process, but It wasn't as clear in my mind on how to execute it. And I did not keep the client bounded within that process as well as I should have. And so
Okay.
I was like, admitted it to the team and said, here's where I fell short. You guys have any ideas on how do we get this back on track? Right. And
Mm,
so it's like, I recognize where things went wrong, and it's like, here's the plan for the future. But guys, let's get together. How do we get this back on track?
mhm.
And so that helps them feel like they're invested in the business. They see a vulnerable side of me. They know that when they screw up, they can come to me as well and hopefully get some advice. So it really has built, we don't want to mess up in our businesses, but at least if that happens, we can, use it to build a little bit more team cohesion.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a good one.
There was,
What you're doing is you're teaching. There's a lesson in
yeah,
there, right? But also, I think, it builds cohesion, but it also gives your team members a sense of ownership that you're not just coming in and dictating how things must be done. You said, "Hey, what do we do?" Oh, my daughter's calling me.
oh, go for it. Answer it. We'll pause it.
All right, hold on.
All right. Well, hopefully this is cut out. But if not, that's what happens in life with kids. They call you, and Larry, our families
I
are more
take the
important than
calls from my
anything else.
kids. So
Yeah,
that's
it's
one of
more
my
important.
non-negotiables. I'm sorry.
I agree. So if you guys listen to this, we apologize, but too bad.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, so we were talking about, some examples like from my corporate world about when leaders, when I've
Right.
been vulnerable and when other leaders have. And there's another example. I think we were talking about in the pre-show about, I remember being in a quarterly review, and the CEO, that like the first slide that said, here's our outlook for the next quarter. And it was a video of fog streaming across the screen. And he's like,
Yeah.
we have no idea what's coming forward. And I was like, that didn't instill any confidence for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I can't remember if, how much they talked about, well, here were the plans. But, if that is the case, if you don't know where you're going forward, you at least should come to your team with a plan and say, here's what I'm thinking, guys. This is what's going on in the business and the industry. How do we make sure that we get clarity, or what do you guys feel is the best thing that we should do, moving forward?
Yeah. Yeah. That's good.
And we talked about there's times when that kind of a statement, we don't know where we're going, kind of makes sense given, we're just kind of coming out of the pandemic, right?
But
But I mean, there still has to be some thoughts about, well, what are we going to do? What opportunities are, because no matter how bad it gets, there's always opportunities, right? There's always
well,
things to be
sure.
done.
Well, our team members can see through. Like if the industry is crashing down
Oh,
around you,
yeah.
or the economy is crashing down around you, um, your team members are going to be scratching their head if you come in and it's all Pollyanna, so that it's all sunshine, lollipops,
right.
and rainbows. So I do think it's the responsibility of us as business owners, CEOs, entrepreneurs, to state the reality. But you don't just say, "Hey, business really sucks right now." Okay, meeting dismissed. No, or you're all dismissed.
Yeah. What are you telling them? You do that. It's like, you guys better find another job.
Right. So what you have to do though is then say, here's what the plan is, or hey, let's brainstorm this together so that we are all on the same page. But that's scary to do. It's
It
scary
is.
to do sometimes.
It
So
is.
there's
Well,
nothing wrong with saying that.
yeah. And one of the things that I think that I found out, watching you over the years being vulnerable is, when you are being vulnerable with people, it's not where you're coming down to their level. When you're vulnerable, you're bringing them up to your level, I think,
Yeah.
you know, and that's always a good thing to do with your team.
I think it is. But the key here is I don't just share tragedies in my life just for the sake of sharing them.
Yeah.
There's appropriate time and context It's in the process of telling the story,
Right.
right? And like any good storyteller, there's an emotional arc in it. What's the moral to this?
Mhm.
Why am I sharing this with you? I don't just walk into a meeting with our team members to talk about how, both my parents died within 48 hours of each other. Like, where are we going with this?
Yeah.
So there's got to be context. Got to be context.
Yeah, and it was interesting. That's an interesting example. I remember, when our cat died not too long ago, I told the team that, and it's like, yeah, that is affecting me, a little bit, so
Yeah.
that they understood, but they knew that was
Right.
only a temporary thing. And
Right.
the context, Larry, is that we on our team meetings, being virtual and everything, I'll take the cat and show the cat, or the cat would walk across my desk,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
so
Right.
we'd see each other as animals, right?
Right.
So that
Right.
was a good context, because they
That's
knew
absolutely right.
that. Yeah. So
Yes.
I like your point about keeping it to where you understand the context. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
what the
Good.
cool thing is guess what? If you have something going on in your business or your life and you don't know whether or not to share it, and of course, I'm assuming you're part of our community, ask the question in the community.
Yes. That's a
Get
good
some
point.
advice.
That's a good point. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, anything else around this?
I would just remind people that that flashpoint that we mentioned today is part of this book that Dave and I had put together 7 years ago now. Is that right? Is that about right?
Yes.
But there is a flashpoint that's about 130 words, one for each day of the year, right?
Yeah.
And we give you an opportunity to read this thing. We encourage people to make it part of their morning routine. It's
Mhm.
about 130 words. Read it in just a couple of minutes, and then it asks for what are your thoughts on today's flashpoint, and then we ask you to actually articulate or write down what are your intentions and action steps for the day, and what you're grateful for in your life. So it's a really quick part of people's morning routine. It's a bestseller. You can go to store.ugozi.com if you want to pick one up there, or you can go to Amazon if you want to, overnight it from your Amazon Prime account. But we've had large organizations, both nonprofits, institutes, as well as Fortune 50 companies who have used this book as part of their, morning stand-up meetings. So it's a great book. It's a great book.
It is.
Yeah.
If we do say so ourselves.
Yeah, if we do say so ourselves. So, David, thank you. This was the first project that Dave and I worked on together professionally.
Yeah.
Dave, this never would have got across the finish line had you not jumped in and said, "Hey, let me help you."
Well, it was an honor.
So
it was
thank you.
fun. And I'm still going through those almost every day now,
Yeah.
7 years later, because they're timeless. They really are.
They are. Yep. Yeah, good.
All right, folks. Well, Larry, let's bring this to a close. And, folks, thanks for joining us, being here with us, helping us tackle this tough subject today. And the reason why we bring these up and have this podcast is because we believe that building a team is the way to reclaim your freedom. And that's why we're doing this. And we want to help you guys, right?
Yeah.
So we want you to help us now a little bit. So we'd love you to do 3 things right now. Number 1, subscribe to the podcast if you haven't already done so. Number 2, give us a rating. And then number 3, go to HireMyVA.com for more information on our course and community and other products and services that we got. And so remember, even if you don't have any experience, you'll learn how to prepare for, hire, and thrive with virtual assistants. Larry and I have helped a lot of folks, and we'd love to help you too. So just go to HireMyVA.com for more information.
That's right. And do yourself a favor. Do the world a favor. Go do something significant today. All right. God bless you. God hold you. God keep you. All right, my friends. Go get them. We'll see you later.
All right. Bye, everybody.
Peace out.